Gimble, Cornfield there. Rock a band and I like Tupac, I've been there.
What's going on, Gooners? Shout out to Gooners and Goonerettes in the house. Really, really enjoyable last night podcast. If you didn't miss it, the back five is back. We trialed it last year for about 3 or 4 episodes, and I think what we've got now is a different kind of commitment from all 5 YouTubers, and we definitely got something cooking up really nice for you guys this season. So I hope you tune in on Monday nights. It's not going to be every Monday. I'm going to try and do it every 2 weeks. But a shout out for Vincey as well for taking part. And there was a joke that there were 6 of us, and I did say, there's 4 people in the Three Musketeers, so it doesn't really matter about the number. But I just want to talk about the display and the game against Manchester City. And some people are saying, yeah, it's not a cup. It is a domestic trophy, guys, by the way. But I just want to say it's not the result. It's the performance, and we're going to talk about that. Many times I've talked about how Arteta at the end of last season said we're going to take a look at everything. We're going to take a look at the players. We're going to take a look at the coaching, how we train, how we prepare, and we're going to take a look at me as well. And Arteta was mentioning that within himself. But it definitely looks like he has turned a page in his growth as a manager with only 3 years, which makes him the most inexperienced manager in the league. And the fact that he's doing this already is the reason why I've said potentially he has a higher ceiling than many of the managers in the league. I know some publications have voted him in the top 5 managers in the league, and he hasn't really sort of achieved anything yet. But I think what we're doing is we're talking about his ceiling. In the same way you judge a player like Saka or you price a player like Glenn Rice, you're buying potential, aren't you? And I think that's what it is with Arteta. The potential for him is greater than many that we've seen. We all talking about Unai Emery and how good he is, and he's a second-tier manager. He has never really made it at the top end, winning the Premier League or winning the Champions League or anything like that. He's always been a sort of second-tier manager, and I don't think he'll ever rise above that. Not in my opinion, anyway. But Arteta, I believe, can. Arteta can be a top-tier manager because he certainly has the buying power and the tools to make it work. What he hasn't had is a squad. And this is the first season now. We've seen those 3 years he's been in charge. We've seen the first year Deadwood, the second year youthful transition into a younger squad, a squad that you can build for the future. And his third year, which is last year, which is where he started to bring in experienced players. And that accumulated to Arsenal nearly win the league, leading for 278 days, which is more than anyone in history. And of course, the lack of squad and probably the lack of knowledge and experience from Arteta is what was a combination, as well as the injuries, into us not being able to sustain that. But that we're carrying that hurt over into this season, and we can clearly say the players are more up for it. They're fighting more. The injuries I don't think are going to be much of a concern for 2 reasons, because of the rotation capability that we have with a stronger squad, and then the players are going to be playing less games. I wouldn't expect anyone to be on there for 36, 37 games a season. There's just too many games to play. So with that being said, we can see the growth coming in from Arteta, and I'm going to really kind of talk about that. What was the differences that we saw yesterday? Well, the main difference, obviously, guys, is in an attacking formation, Arsenal go 2 at the back, 3 in the midfield and 5 up front. But this is where Arsenal's kind of started to split the pitch yesterday. And I talked about these midfield battles that we had in that secure box where Odegaard, Partey, Havertz and Declan Rice was working. And that battle was changed 3 times throughout the game. Pep countered, Arteta countered 3 times in order to make that battle continue. And it's a major factor with Arsenal gaining control of the match. Whereas previously, last season, we saw their ability to move the ball quickly and accurately get a few passes in as possible into the final third and then finish. But I think the difference is this season that we're able to counter that in different phases of the pitch rather than the final third. And obviously Thomas Partey now is not so much in a single pivot in large parts of the game. Declan Rice is now acting as a double pivot in huge amounts of the game. And then we're seeing Declan Rice filling in at the left back position as well, which would allow Timber to go up into the midfield and help Partey and then help the attacking force. He's not so much as help in the attacking game as say as Zinchenko is, but he's better defensively, so that makes the team more sound. So there's two things that are going to improve the defense. One is Timber playing that defensively sound role and locking down the right wing attacker, and two is the double pivot, giving help and assist to Thomas Partey. Those things that we're seeing now is going to translate to Arsenal being a more solid, more better shaped team. It might result in less goals, as I said on the podcast last night, but that's nothing I would really worry about, because last season we broke a franchise record for goals and didn't win the league. So I think if you can depend on your big players getting you big goals at a time, but then defend better, then that's the key to it, because we only kept 2 clean sheets in the last few months of the season, and that's not good enough. And so we've got to figure out how to be able to shut down teams. And this brings me on to the match and how Arteta's changes in philosophy catered over to this game. The first thing we did was a performance that we're going to talk about was Ben White. Ben White locked down Grealish, locked him down to the point where he won 6 of those duels. And then we move on to Saliba. Saliba's battle against Haaland was box office. It was 2 big heavyweights going at it, and the winner was Saliba by an astounding decision. And the reason for that is this is only the second time in Haaland's career that we've seen him have a 0.00 XG. And because of that, because those 2 players were nullified, Grealish was taken out of the game by Ben White, and Haaland was taken out of the game by Saliba, Man City resulted in having an XG of less than 1. This is Manchester City we're talking about. This is a team that scores an average of 3 goals against Arsenal in the last 20 games. Yeah? An average of 3 goals. That's how much they score against Arsenal, and their XG was less than 1. So you have to kind of look at it and look, there was periods where they came on strong in the second half, and Ramsdale, who was another hero, was able to make some outstanding saves. But it was just the overall commitment, and it was the fight back, and it was the fact that their heads didn't drop. So the new players in there, Declan Rice having lifted a European trophy, Havertz having won the Champions League for his team, and Timber just being a baller, that again added into the influx of Arsenal's fight back, and it was a fight back. We can talk about Declan Rice before we talk about Havertz, because let's kind of counter that. We talked about Timber already. But Declan Rice, little bit of noise in the fan base saying that Rice and Havertz weren't really putting their weight, and that's not really true. Now, the truth with Declan Rice is, watching his game positionally, he does have a lot to learn. He's got quite a bit of that position to pick up from, because he's been unaccustomed to being in that role before. But he's a big difference from Xhaka, guys. And remember, before Xhaka moved to the 8, the most he ever scored was 1 or 2 goals a season. At least Declan Rice scored 4 last season. But it's not really about the goals. It's about the balance. It's about the athleticism. It's about the awareness and the range. Yeah? There's a lot of things that Xhaka did well last season, but the range wasn't at the top of his game. He wasn't athletically gifted enough to get around the field as a box-to-box midfielder should, especially in that number 8 position. And there was a time where we've seen last season, Xhaka made some key tackles, which really helped the defence. But this season, you're going to get that with Declan Rice. But what Xhaka didn't have was that athleticism. And there was one scene we saw yesterday where Man City was breaking with Villa, and you saw Declan Rice just run back. He came from like 30 yards. The domination in terms of, his stature. Man City was like, where did that come from? What happened? And that just shows you that he has the ability to do that. It came out of nowhere, and it was very unsuspected as well, because I can't remember many times where we saw an Arsenal midfielder doing that. Xhaka was a rash tackler. But, last season he improved in a lot of phases of the game. Still a little bit hot-headed. But with Declan Rice, you're getting a cool customer. You're getting someone who is temperamental, doesn't go over the top with his emotions like Xhaka does. is more athletically gifted. And although Xhaka had a hard shot on him, which resulted in some really good finishes and some sweet goals, Declan Rice isn't that kind of player. He's more of a perfectionist in terms of the way how he places a ball when he shoots. So we've got a lot to see with Declan Rice, but I'm happy that I've seen those signs, and I think he'll integrate into the team really well. It's a very complex role. He said it before. He said it after the Barcelona preseason game, and he said it after the Man City game, that it's going to take him time because the system is seriously complex. So really appreciate the love that you guys are giving Declan Rice and the time for him to get this sorted out now. So, just give him 3 or 4 games to get it under his belt and just get into the swing of things. The other thing is Kai Havertz. Man, does he make a difference. When City came in with a heavy press, Arsenal started to go long with the ball to a target man. And unlike before, where target man just kind of wouldn't win those battles, Havertz was really making himself accountable for holding up the ball. And not just that, but I know you lot talked about he missed the second chance, but actually the goalkeeper made a good save with his leg. He outstretched his left leg, made that save. And yes, if the ball would have went anywhere else, it probably would have went in the net. But Havertz was off balance as well because he had to control the ball, turn, and then he kind of didn't get everything he wanted on it. He stretched as he was going for the kick. But yeah, I mean, overall, the positions he puts himself in is good. He's going to get goals. There's no two ways about it. But I don't think that that's his primary role. As I said before, I think that he's more of a false 9. So if you see how Jesus drops back into the midfield with the energy he has, I'm expecting in the future for Havertz to shoot forward and then take that anchor role. So it's going to be a lot of versatility and a lot of switching and changing, which we see from Arteta's teams anyway. But I do think that Havertz is a key weapon, and I think he had a really good game. He died off towards the end, which is why he got substituted off. I think all the work rate and the pressing that he was doing was definitely gassing him. But then Nketiah came in and then really had a good game after that, really. And Nketiah really started opening up the game with his link play, and that's what I like about him. Nketiah is really coming on as a player, growing with every performance and every year, really, from Nketiah. So, look, overall, guys, it was the performance that really saved the day. Regardless of the result, we could have lost that game, and I'd still be sitting here having the same conversation with you guys. But yeah, I just really wanted to cover that off, guys. So let me know what you thought about the game in the comment section below. Remember, tomorrow night is predictions of the first 10 games of the season, and then, where we're going to finish in the league, who's going to be top scorer. So look out for that Wednesday, 9 o'clock. Peace out, guys. Right back at you.
I'm tryna be a black king, yeah. I'm tryna be a black king, yeah. MLK, Jay-Z, MJ. I'm tryna be a black king.